So meeting open. Sorry about that. So open with a prayer and acknowledgement of traditional owners. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the peace and beauty of the area. Direct and prosper the deliberations of this council for the advancement of the city and the welfare of its people. Amen. We'd also like to acknowledge the Noongar people who are the traditional custodians of the land and pay respects to elders past, present and emerging. Mr CEO, record of apologies and leave of absence.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Good evening, everybody. We have a number of apologies for this evening's meeting. They're recorded on the screen. I'll just read them out so that everyone's aware. Councillor Lynn McLaren is an apology. Councillor Thomas Bruff is also an apology. And we have an apology from Executive Director, Mr Nathan Watson. And we have 9 elected members, including yourself, Mr Mayor, in attendance.
Thank you. Disclosures of interest.
There's a number of disclosures, Mr Mayor. They're recorded there on the screen for everyone to see. They are an impartiality from Councillor McKinlay in relation to report number CCS 719. Councillor McKinlay will stay in the chamber for the item and vote on the item. Councillor Sutton has declared an impartiality in the same item and likewise will stay and vote on the item. Yourself, Mr Mayor, also have declared an impartiality and will remain in the chamber and vote on the item. I'll just put it to you and staff, elected members, is there any further disclosures tonight? No further disclosures. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. We'll move on to reports of members. Councillor Leonetti.
Thank you, Chair. I don't normally talk much, but I went to the budget meeting and it was quite good. We got the airport money and a few other things. But this is nothing against councillors or anything like that, but I was a bit disappointed in the hospital because we did not get nothing for the hydro pool and it looks like we're not going to get our rooms. So I'm sort of a bit hesitant about that, but I'd like to have permission from the floor because I would like to stand up for the hospital and for our community. My ratepayers have approached me to stand up and push so we can get the hydro pool. We're not saying the council pay for it, but I think it was 4 years ago and we never got it, so we're not going to get it in this term if we don't make a bit of noise and stand up for that. So I'd really like your approval to do that. And the other thing that we got that was really good that I pushed for while I was running was the rehab, alcohol and drug rehab money, and that looks like they're going to put it up. And SAC, I heard today, have started a petition to make sure that it's a multicultural rehab centre, so it's for everybody, not just a single group. So I think that's going to be really good and really good for Albany because it'll take a lot of pressure off the prison. But our main thing is the hospital itself. We really need to get behind it because I have the nurses come in and I mean, you can believe me or not, but they're saying that patients are getting checked inside the toilets and stuff like that, and it's just people queued up down the corridors. We really need to get behind that. I know it's a government perspective, but we really need to get behind and make sure that we get something done in this term. Thank you very much.
Well, I agree with that, and I think particularly around the hydrotherapy pool, that it is a state government responsibility. I have no problem with you bringing a notice of motion to the next council meeting if you want staff to help you craft that. And I think WA Country Health should take the responsibility for the hydrotherapy pool. We've got a demographic that says that we should be doing that. So yes, I'd agree with you there. And on the matter of the hospital, the response from the Minister was essentially that there's $8 million in the budget to do the planning this year, and we need to be pressing them to push ahead with it as soon as the plan's complete. I'd much rather they did the whole $360 million thing, but looks like we'll get the $60 million one. So, I agree. Councillor Sutton.
Look, probably just on that, probably a greenfield site would have been the ideal starting point, not trying to publish a thing. Look, I'd like to mention 2 things. Firstly, on Saturday, I went to the local footy game. North Albany versus Royals, and it was a get-together for the 215 and 205 and 1980 grand final sides. And you can't guess which one I was in, I bet. And look, I didn't come here to gloat and talk about the 7-goal win over arch rivals Royals, the beloved Royals from the Mayor, but it was a fantastic game, and North Albany's first win for the year. So over the Royalies. Did I mention the 7 goals? No, I did. Yeah, sorry, I wasn't going to mention it. But look, more importantly, the team, Paul's team, prepared an absolute belter of a ground. I still maintain that all the money we've spent over here, Collingwood Park is still the best football oval or arena. The surface was perfect. I think you should send your boys to Sydney and do the Sydney ground for it. You know, we've had a fair bit of rain over the last few weeks and months, but to get that ground up where they didn't lose their footing, and it was just a fantastic spectacle right through. So congratulations to your crew, Paul, if you'd pass on my congratulations to him. And a great win by North Albany, first for the year. I mentioned that too, didn't I? Look, the second thing is I went to the motor sport park meeting 2 or 3 weeks ago on the Sunday morning. Even had people from Perth come down for the meeting. So I don't think Albany realises how important it will be as, you know, motorsport tourism. I think Rita Safiotti obviously knows, because she wants to spend 217 to 230 million starting price in Burswood, so they understand. But after the meeting, we were actually taken for a trip around the Northern Circuit. That's the first part of the Black Track Circuit, and I was staggered how big it was. You think a kilometre's not very big, but by gee, it's huge, and 12 metres wide, the equivalent to North Road without the median strip joined together. It's massive, and that'll be a first in the state. So it'll be built for lots and lots of different things. But more importantly, once that was going to be sealed this week, I think Paul mentioned to me, just the seal coat, and in the later on the year in the summer, we'll get the hot mix. Then they can start having their timed events. Paul can ride his push bike in Criterion events there, driver training. So it's going to be a beginning of a new era. But it was absolutely magnificent. And I think the town's got something really, really good to look forward to. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. I think that does count as a gloat. Councillor Trail.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Most of the last month I've spent away from Albany over in the eastern colonies and spreading the word about Albany and what's coming up for us over the next year, which is always good to point out to people on the other side of the country. So it's been nice to be away and actually see many other communities and how they operate, especially rural ones, rather than the big cities. But when I came back, I was able to represent you, because you were off on the eastern colonies as well, at the opening of the State Conference of the Country Women's Association, which was held in Albany last week. It's a big event. It's the 101st State Conference. They've been going for an awful long time, and held over 2.5 days at the Entertainment Centre, probably 300 to 350 delegates. It was a big event, and so it was really great to actually represent you. It was organised by a consortium, I guess, from the region, branches from Albany, Denmark, Franklin River, Mount Barker and Rocky Gully, who put together the program, which CWA is often a bit of a butt of jokes, really, but they do some really good stuff, and they've moved with the times. They're covering things like rural medical education. They've got a scholarship that they run through the Rural Clinical School at UWA here based in Albany. They're dealing with agricultural education and skills development in rural areas. They're dealing with mental health, with drug addiction in rural areas, and all of those things which actually impact our society just as much as anywhere else. So it was great to be part of it. And as a token, having said a few words about Albany in your place, it's a beautiful book called Women of Spirit, a centenary of CWA stories. I'm never averse to getting another book in my hands, as you know. This is the book review for the day. Lovely book. I'll be putting this in the library if we don't have a copy of it there. And all in all, it was a really successful conference. So I think, apart from the citizenship ceremony today, which you and I attended, that's been about my month in council. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bajou.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I too had the privilege of representing the Mayor while he was off, and I would actually refer to them as our eastern states. I'm not quite sure that it's politically correct to talk about colonies these days, but that's all right. But I was down at the Great Southern International 1 metre regatta, and it was a very chilly solstice event. I don't know that the temperature got above 8 degrees. I did have my wellies on, and I felt like I was wading in the water or going for a skinny dip, even though I didn't quite. But yeah, it was really great to represent the city at that event. And the participants who'd come from a lot had come from Perth, but there was also a chap who'd come across from Queensland to share in our Great Southern chilly morning, but they were very, very appreciative of what the city had done to support their organisation, particularly cleaning up the pondweeds and making the Centennial Lake accessible for their craft. And so they were, very grateful to the reserves team. And also, given that it was, quite inclement weather, very short notice, they worked with the events team and were able to secure an additional marquee to keep out the weather. So full of praise for the support that organisation got from the city. Also attended the Aliwa Bardana performance, so that's the by Breaksea, and another amazing collaborative with Breaksea, Gina Williams and Guy Gauss. It's really, really fantastic to see that the City of Albany is able to host and support this emerging form of entertainment. A lot of it was in Noongar language, and it's an absolute credit to the performers, the backstage crew. The costumes were amazing, the lyrics, the choreography. So it involved our local performers as well as international stars. So that was a great privilege. On the 19th of June, the Albany Chamber of Commerce had their marketplace. The City of Albany has a stall at that. It's always great to see between 100 and 200 people, business representatives, attending that event. The City of Albany had their stand, and again, there's a lot of acknowledgement to the City of Albany for their support. And so it's across that spectrum of activities that the city is able to be involved with community. Was happy to host a couple of the CWA representatives and also to hear from them how great it is to be back visiting Albany and how Albany and the South Coast are always on show. We had plenty of rainbows because there were quite a bit of drizzle over that weekend. It was chilly, but again, the visitors and people who have a very fond place in their heart in Albany. On a more sentimental note, last Friday I got to go along and meet some of the cast of the 21 Hearts. So that's the story of Vivian Bullwinkle. That was hosted by the RSL, and it was very sombre, but also, very uplifting. And yes, there was also reference to the 2026 activity, which is Our Place. There was also Southern Edge Arts showcases. There were 4 performances by the young members and amazing acrobatics, drama down in their little venue. It was packed to the brim for all 4 of those performances. Also did a bit of whale watching, and it occurred to me that, we've got so many wonderful vantage points across the state, across our coast, but it's an area that probably needs a bit of attention, potentially to partner with state government so that all people get to enjoy our amazing South Coast.
Thank you. Councillor Grimmer.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Over the last couple of months, I've been following up from the rural road shows and talking to a lot of rural people, and I really want to pass on my thanks and congratulations. You're getting 2 in one night, Paul, to the works crew. The feedback I'm getting about the work that's going on the rural roads and the drains has been so positive from a number of community members. Even some of the cynics that would normally ring me about how bad things were actually rang me to actually say that. So that's something I'd like you to pass on to the team. They're doing very well there. The other event that I just want to talk about was something that we did as a council yesterday, which was we had a session on our strategic community plan, and I thought it was a really worthwhile session where we're starting to just re-look at it to refresh it, and I think it was great the way that we were involved in that, and we'll obviously, as we get the draft done, we'll obviously be involving the community as well. I think there was a commitment from that meeting to get that out to the community. So I find that my background is in strategic and business planning, and I find that that top document's really important. So I'm looking forward to us refreshing that and making it a little bit simpler to understand and a little bit more community focused. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McKinlay.
Nothing to report tonight.
Deputy Mayor Terry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, a bit on this last month. The first event that no one's mentioned so far is the classic car event on the June long weekend. Really well attended, and unfortunately there were a number of accidents, and a few old cars banged up. And it wasn't raining, so they ran behind time. But they might not have been able to run at all or had a problem because the day before the container bridges were supposed to go up, the operator who was going to be doing that had to pull out for whatever reason. And I just wanted to make special mention of Menang Trains, Aaron Williams, for stepping up at the last minute to help the organisers get the bridges done up. And if it wasn't for Aaron and his team stepping up, those bridges wouldn't have been in place, so the event would have been running even more behind than it did. Also, during the month, we had the opening of Scott Leary's office, and I also wanted to acknowledge that we had a visit by the full Nationals WA parliamentary team. That's all their MLAs and their two new MLCs. I think that's the first time that we've had the full National Party parliamentary team here, and it was a credit to them to come along and listen, and they went to Denmark as well, and it was great to engage with their team. Also had the privilege to go out on the Machiavelli barge that was finishing off with the surf reef. A few of us went out there on the few days before we went to Canberra. But it was really fascinating to watch how they placed the rocks and the precision, and what they did. It was just fascinating. And then they finished on the Friday, and then those that were in town that weekend knew there was a bit of a swell that came through, and there was, like, from reports, more than 30 people in the water, surfing good 2 metre face wave, and there was about 100 people on the shore watching. And Albany board riders put up a Facebook post with a number of videos, and that's been shared around. We shared it in Canberra with a number of people, and they were blown away. So that the surf reef is getting a lot of play around the country, a lot of interest, and when we have the opening in a couple of weeks, the interest will peak even more. So it's really, really congratulations to everyone who's been involved in getting that up to where it is today, especially the Mayor. We've had the budget briefing. One event I did go to, also the Albany Maritime Foundation. Over the last 9 months or so, they've been building 2 what they call St Isles skiffs for people to row, basically, in the harbour. So there's been a crew of about 20 guys and a couple of ladies building these skiffs, building their skills, having basically a men's shed down at the boat shed, having a great time, and it was a privilege to launch those 2 skiffs on the Friday afternoon, and they went out in that gale on Saturday morning, Councillor Beja, that you experienced out at the boat lake, and they did have a bit of a row in the marina, and the boats stayed afloat, and good time was had by all. And then obviously went to Canberra with the Mayor and the CEO last week. Really informative sessions, lots of key takeaways. No doubt we will be doing up a report to report back to all of you about what went on and things that will come out of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cruz.
No, thank you, Mayor.
Okay, we'll move on to responses to previous public questions taken on notice. There was a question from Mr. Phil Harding, which is in the agenda and will be published with the minutes. And there's quite a detailed response there that I'm sure he has seen, so I won't read it. Public question time. Interestingly, we don't have anyone that wants to talk to anything on the agenda tonight, but we have about 8 people, so we should fit that in inside the half an hour that we allow for public question time. So obviously, when you're addressing council, if you can give your name and suburb and the topic that you would like to discuss, and you have 4 minutes, governed by a traffic light system. At 3.5 minutes, the orange amber light will come on, and at 4 minutes, your allocated time will conclude. First of all, Glenys Kelly.
Mr Mayor and Councillors, thank you for taking the time to listen to the items that I want to raise. My name is Glenys Kelly. I live in Centennial Park. We have world-class beaches, unique nature on our doorstep, award-winning wineries and eateries, and an apathy that overrules all of it. What plans are in place to approach state government for funding and recognition of our region? And I don't mean more sporting facilities, but tourism ventures that will encourage and secure jobs and grow our infrastructure. Other tourism hotspots have actively promoted their area and been rewarded with multi-millions in upgraded highways, a new airport, and acknowledgement that they are the preferred destination for all visitors, both national and international. So the question is, what are we doing to promote Albany and the Great Southern, and what funding has been allocated to this end for 2025-26? The second question I would like to raise is along similar lines. Given the sad reflection of multiple vacant storefronts, not only on York Street, but throughout the CBD, what is the council doing to encourage new businesses to come to Albany? One solution would be to increase rates for those properties that have been allowed to remain vacant for over 3 years. I'm aware that some have been empty for nearly a decade, which is an insult to the citizens that prefer and attempt to shop locally. While I'm aware that tax write-offs are legal, whether they are ethical is questionable at best and raises the spectre of exactly why this unbridled decline has been allowed to happen. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms Kelly. We're going to take those on notice because particularly the first question, it'll be quite a complex response. There's a large number of things that we're trying to do to address some of those things that you raised, so we'll come back to you. Robin Bollard.
Robin Bollard. I want to speak about Emu Beach Rose Gardens Caravan Park. Since the last council meeting, there's been some progress on the relocation of park homes. My colleague Pippa has sent Panorama Caravan Park photos of the homes that can be relocated. There's 8 in total, so that Panorama can do some planning. We'd like to thank Councillor Grimmer for visiting the park and assessing our situation since the last council meeting. At the last council meeting, the addendum did not mention help to find accommodation for 6 residents, elderly residents, that can't be moved. But you mentioned help to those that can be moved to Panorama. Yet in other parts of the minutes it says the city recognises the impact that relocation will have on tenants and is committed to advocating for access to housing support services. We haven't seen any of that yet. This was asked for in Councillor McLaren's amendment originally. That said, the original amendment committed to advocating for residents displaced to secure alternative accommodation to prevent vulnerable residents from experiencing homelessness, and this has not been addressed as yet. We haven't heard from the Mayor or CEO since the last meeting. We've had some contact with Lynn McLaren, Councillor Grimmer and the Nationals' Scott Leary. So please, we need council, councillors, politicians, anyone, please, to lean on government departments and find homes for these pensioners. I'll just add something that I heard today about the RAC and what they're going to be doing down there at Rose Gardens. They are only going to leave 4 chalets. The rest of the chalets on the foreshore, there's 8 of them, will be demolished. Now, they could be taken to Panorama Park for people to live in. That is just a total waste. I've lived in Rose Gardens, Emu Point for 25 years now, and I must admit I fell in love with it the way it was. We've maybe lost a beach and some trees. It's changed a bit. But when RAC take it over, I've been looking at what they're doing at a park in Ningaloo, and they're spending $30 million on that park. And I've been looking at the plans. There'll be 2-story buildings, there'll be swimming pools. It will be big and it'll be a resort. And I just don't know whether the people at Emu Point are aware of how big it's going to be and how it will affect where they live. Because as it is in the summer, ordinary people that live in Albany can't even find a car park at Emu Point. Thank you.
Reg Hoyley.
Reg Hoyling, resident of Rose Garden Caravan Park, Emu Point. Since the last meeting, we still know absolutely nothing. We don't know, we haven't heard from any of the owners, Redwood, we haven't heard from RAC or the council. What the hell are we supposed to be doing? We haven't got any response from anyone. And every day, that caravan park is going downhill very, very quickly. We've got guttering and the amenities falling down. We've got potholes everywhere. Redwood aren't spending a cent on this caravan park, and it's just going to shit. Sorry, and yeah, something's got to be done. Yeah, that's all. Thanks. I just want a bit of help. Thank you.
Thanks, Rich. We are doing what we can, and we have been advocating particularly strongly at Panorama, but it's been quite difficult as far as Rose Gardens Caravan Park. Probably a good idea for the residents to be putting some pressure on Redwood you're paying rent, to be investing in it. If not, we'll have a look at that. Annabelle Pauly.
Annabelle Pauly of Lockyer, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Friends of Yakamai Forest Budja. We acknowledge the traditional owners of Albany. Mayor, Deputy Mayor and councillors. Some of our members attended the workshops on the Albany North District Structure Plan. What follows are suggestions developed in that process. Only 15% remnant native vegetation, 15% is left in the Albany North area. We must protect all of it. The federal government's national roadmap is to conserve 30% of Australia's vegetation by 2030. All levels of government need to play a part. The Albany North Plan should aim to increase vegetation by installing new interconnected corridors. Of course, there's tension between development to accommodate our growing population and the protection of native vegetation and wildlife habitat. Typically, we are told that there needs to be compromise and balance. But native vegetation and wildlife have compromised way too much. In this respect, I draw your attention to your own 2019 local planning strategy. It states that, I quote, "A considerable amount of native vegetation still exists on private property. As conservation reserves are less able to retain their values as isolated islands in a cleared or urbanised landscape, a vegetation linkage or macro corridor approach is an appropriate initiative in abating the loss of biodiversity. Actions in the strategy commit the city to investigate areas to protect the city's biodiversity and conservation, secure vegetation linkages or macro corridors, and protect remnant vegetation on private land. Local planning schemes and structure plans are to be amended accordingly." End of quote. What we're asking for is for you to honour your own commitments in your own strategy. We would like the City of Albany to create a conservation reserve between Bond Road and North Road. This is a crucial wildlife habitat. To start with, we'd like the council to work with the state government to buy the 2 vacant lots at the eastern end of Target Road, which are for sale for $1.6 million. What? I hear you think. Let me give you some context. As you know, federal and state governments and the City of Albany have collectively spent many millions of dollars on projects in recent years, including the Ring Road for $225 million, at least, the Centennial Sporting Precinct, Surf Reef, Motorsports Park, Surf Lifesaving Club and Tennis Centre. A further $11.5 million is now budgeted for upgrades to the Albany Airport. What we are asking is very, very modest, balanced against the large sums spent on community facilities and services. Now it's nature's turn. The majority of land at the end of Target Road could be revegetated to create a corridor connecting existing forest vegetation to the north and south, including Lot 4743. The project could be supported with state government funding if the City of Albany was to make a case for it to be considered, possibly as a bicentennial park project, as we have suggested previously. This, of course, requires the City and the Department of Planning to develop alternative transport corridors. We ask that money be allocated in budgets for the purchase of private lots with high conservation value vegetation, as the Queensland State Government does. We'd like to meet with you to talk about making this new conservation reserve a reality. Thank you.
Thank you. John Dowse.
John Dowse, Spencer Park, cusp of Yakima. My respects to Nogan Manang, elders past, present, and those coming through. There's some very good young people coming through. Councillors, Mayors, thank you very much. Nice to see you all again. Mayor, I haven't seen you down at Surfers Beach. Last week, I had one of the longest body rides I've ever had in my many, many years. It was amazing. And I didn't think it'd work. Now, I attended the North Albany Structure Plan workshop. It was often fun. We had a good time and a lot of good stuff came out of it. And it may come as a surprise to you, but I don't have a background in town planning. But I've got a friend who works for the City of Brisbane, and Annabelle mentioned Queensland, and that's very opportune because we had a chat last week and I told him about the North Albany Structure Plan and about Yakima Forest, and I sent him some maps, including this one, which you've all seen, of course. Okay, fine. I asked him to have a look at the maps and make a comment, and this is what he said. He said, there seems to be a clear opportunity to create a wildlife corridor joining up the X's on the map. You see all those X's? And filling in those gaps with properties that adjoin them. These are his exact words. In Queensland, our environmental department has the ability to purchase land for environmental reserves. Not sure what the situation is in WA, but if they can, they could buy those lots from existing owners and rehabilitate them. With that flora and fauna corridor created, having any severing road through should be avoided. Are there any questions? Thank you.
No. July the 16th, John. If I can fit into my wetsuit, I'll be at the opening. See you there. Mark Allen.
Mark Allen of Unit 5 of 12 Simon Streets. It's actually quite hard to follow in John's footsteps, actually, but I will do my best. Look, I was also lucky enough to be selected to be at that workshop, and really, I just want to say that there was a broad spectrum of people there, with different interests, different political beliefs and opinions, and there were a lot of very interesting conversations and discussions that were had. But there was also some survey work done, and we had to sort of rank things that were important to us in order. And native vegetation, the preservation of native vegetation came out on top, and the need for wildlife corridors came out on top in terms of environmental values. Now, in terms of heritage and character, Menang Noongar culture came out on top. And then behind that was, of course, the natural environment. And then, last but not least, in terms of work-life values, walkability and the ability to cycle and catch public transport were three top issues. So with the North Albany structure plan, we need to do something a little bit different, a bit more innovative. We need to create walkable communities, we need medium density development, we need housing diversity, but crucially, we also need access to nature. It's important for our mental health, but it's also important, as said earlier, we only have a small amount of remnant vegetation left. Putting another north-south road, which would in time become a dual carriageway, doesn't seem to make a lot of sense so close to Chester Pass Road. Smart planning solution would be to create permeable neighbourhoods with lots of smaller roads interconnecting, radiating traffic in different directions, permeable. That's the key, rather than another big arterial road. We want to have walkability, cyclability, more mixed-use development, walking, to be able to walk towards shops so that people have to travel less. And therefore, rather than looking towards large roads, we can look at a network of smaller roads. And that is good planning 101. That's what they taught me. So that's really all I'd like to say, just to support what Annabelle and John has already said, and to think that with this structure plan, we have an opportunity to do something really creative and interesting and innovative that reflects the path that we as a society need to go down in the next 20, 30, 40 years, which is a low carbon, sustainable society. Thank you so much.
Just in response to those three speakers on Yakima Forest, the city won't take a direction until such times as we have the draft for the Albany North Structure Plan, and it's been a lengthy process, so between 18 months and two years, I suppose, by the time we get hold of it and have a look at it. And there are some complex studies that are going on there and the community consultation. So until such times as we have that in our hand, we won't be committing one way or the other, but we'll analyse that, and we'll certainly be talking to interest groups and when we've had time to digest what the WAPC hand to us. So we have an open mind, but we're waiting for that draft. Michael Pemberton.
Mr Mayor, councillors, my name's Michael Pemberton and I live in Shorts Place, Miramar. Today, as I understand, it's the first day of the next financial year and also signifies the changing of the guard with respect to rubbish collection in our city. We often pose the questions in this place about buy local and what it means to the businesses in Albany, particularly the small businesses. Cleanaway's demise made Facebook dance both yesterday and today, and a lot of the comment was that the people that were being serviced by it was that they'd done a good job. And I think the part of the job that probably wouldn't have a light shone on it just yet is the fact that they've managed to help in the recycling of cans to the tune of $4.5 to $5 million going back into the community over that period of time. Sadly, a smaller business also lost its contract, having what I would have considered the perfect profile of a small business in Albany. It was successful in getting an initial 5-year contract. It then had 2 periods of 2 years extents on their contract and then finally another year. And you would think that after going through that a period of 10 years, during that time it'd be considered to be the perfect profile for a small business, namely local ownership, local employees, local suppliers of equipment and materials, also purchasing vehicles locally for another business that the boss has got in Perth, and sponsorship with local bodies such as Albany Hospice and the RSL. COVID brought unheard of before challenges, but this small business delivered day after day. It employed 7 people with the usual dependency on continuation of work, mortgage pressure, providing for family units. They have gone from hero to zero after 10 long years. How did that happen? And you must remember that the environment they were working in the last 10 years was probably the worst that they could work in. COVID made life extremely difficult. They didn't put people off. In fact, they worked hard, hand in hand with the City of Albany, in offering flexible arrangements whereby the city enjoyed cost relief from the provider. They didn't get any fanfare, thank you, or a pat in the back. Just quietly went on about their business, providing a service which would become very important through those years. They got the job done, and their reward for that 10 years was as follows. When the item came for the discussion at the last ordinary council meeting, from the time that the item was tabled to the time that the item was passed, with absolutely no discussion, no congratulations, or doing a good job, no discussion as to where the people would be placed. By the way, none of those 7 employees were offered to come across to the new contractor. So now you have 7 unemployed people because of the city's decision to give this contract to a Perth/Sydney-based company. In fact, as far as we are aware, all the staff of the new contractor are from Perth. So when the item was placed before council, 17 seconds later, the effort they put in for the last 10 years just meant for nothing. One of my dad's favourite sayings was, money is made round to go round, not interstate or overseas. When are we going to recognise and reward our small businesses as opposed to our multinationals. Thank you.
I can assure you that the consideration for that item was many hours in the making in committee and in discussion before we get to the council, Mr. Pivot. So that's a simplistic view of a presentation that we took 17 seconds. We absolutely and thoroughly looked at that particular tender. And at the end of the day, the residents of the City of Albany ask us to go into competitive processes, and it's a competitive tender, and sometimes people win, and it's very unfortunate that CGS, that you're talking about, did not win that tender. I agree, but we would get criticism on the other hand for not accepting competitive tenders to the contrary. Michelle Kinsella.
Hi, my name's Michelle Kinsella from Albany, and I'm speaking on behalf of Keeping Children Safe. I, along with the members of Keeping Children Safe, expect the Council to operate in a transparent and accountable manner. Last year, all councillors were contacted in regards to concerns held by members of the public. Unfortunately, the majority of councillors decided to ignore their statutory obligations under the Local Government Act. During that process of a special meeting of electors, several allegations were made by Lynn McLaren, Greg Stokes, and several members of the council. The allegations were that the librarians were recorded in their workplace. These allegations were made here in chambers, on social media, and in public. It was implied defamation, an allegation I took great offence to. Keeping Children Safe made an application under the Freedom of Information Act 1982, IM FOI 144, discovered incident report 2850, which related to the alleged incident on the 10th of the 6th. The very same day I attended the library and made a recording of the condoms being distributed to minors. The only person in that video was myself, and 12,000 viewers plus Tamara Frewen could testify to that. A further FOI was made, an FOI 152, asked for details of the incident report, the investigation and the CCTV footage, proving the allegations. The FOI application has been returned with failed the public interest test. I find that extraordinary. These allegations were made in public and in chambers by council members. There is no CCTV footage of the alleged incident. Despite being able to redact identifying information, the request has been refused. I'm sure everybody has heard of the term flicking mud. Well, mud sticks, and the least you could do is back up that mud by providing the evidence from the allegations. We have witnessed the ongoing persecution of Councillor Thomas Brough after he asked a simple question last year whilst fulfilling his obligations under the Local Government Act, including Section 201D and 201E. It would appear that there's two sets of rules. If you are loud, you can script people to make complaints. Even if they are unfounded and malicious, you get heard and they get repeated. Councillor Lynn McLaren on social media applauded a group of people who held a protest against those who exercise their democratic rights. During that meeting, I was assaulted, and the court case is October 28th. It has now been a pain in my butt for over a year, causing me a great deal of stress and financial, obviously I've had to pay for lawyers. We request that the council stop the unfair persecution of Councillor Thomas Brough and release the information requested in IM FOI 152. And if you continue to hide behind the public interest test, we ask you to release a public statement acknowledging the council did not imply that myself or Tamara Frewen from Keeping Children Safe recorded librarians in their workplace. Rules must apply evenly for everybody. You don't get to sit here like it's your own private fiefdom and fling mud at people that defames their character. Implied defamation is a legal term. Rules must apply evenly for everybody. I'd also like to remind the council that there are approximately 12,000 people that support Councillor Brough, and despite many requests being made to council for the recording of the incident last year on February 27th, they too have been refused. So we would like to know exactly what is going on and provide the evidence behind the allegations of people being continually defamed and persecuted in this community. Thank you.
Thank you. Chief Griffiths. No. Anyone else from the public who wishes to address council? If not, that closes public question time. You can stay, but you can no longer participate in debate. We'll move on to reports. CCS. What's wrong? Oh, sorry. Applications for leave of absence. There's a motion there that Councillor Cruz be granted leave of absence effective 2nd of July 2025 to 30th of September 2025 inclusive. Someone to move that? Councillor Bijou, Councillor Trail, Councillor Bijou, Councillor Trail. Anyone wish to speak against? All those in favour?
Carried 9-0.
Petitions and deputations, none. Confirmation of the minutes of the draft motion is that the minutes of the ordinary council meeting held on the Tuesday 27th of May 2025 as previously distributed be confirmed as a true and accurate record of proceedings. Someone to move that, please. Councillor Sutton, Deputy Mayor Terry. Councillor Sutton, Deputy Mayor Terry. Anyone wish to speak against? If not, we'll put that to the vote. All those in favour?
Carried 9-0.
There are no presentations and no unresolved business from previous meetings. Am I okay to go now?
Just a little bit of housekeeping.
Housekeeping. CCS 715 Monthly Financial Report, April 2025. The recommendation is that the monthly financial report for the period ending 30th of April 2025 be received. Someone to move. Councillor Grimmer. Councillor Trail, Councillor Grimmer. Councillor Trail. Anyone wish to speak against? No. Put that to the vote. All those in favour?
Carried 9-0.
CCS 716 list of accounts for payment, April 2025. That the list of accounts authorised for payment under delegated authority to the Chief Executive Officer for the period ending 30th of April 2025 totalling $8,023,837.03 be received. Someone to move. Councillor Sutton, Councillor McKinley, Councillor Sutton, Councillor McKinley. Anyone speaking against? If not, put that to the vote. All those in favour? Against?
Carried 8-1 against Councillor Leonetti.
It's been 5 weeks since the last election, last meeting. CCS 717 Delegated Authority reports 16th of April to 25 to the 15th of May 2025. The recommendation is that the Delegated Authority reports for that period 16th of April 2025 to 15th of May 2025 be received. Someone to move. Councillor Trail, Councillor Bijou, Councillor Trail, Councillor Bijou. Anyone speaking against? All those in favour?
Carried 9-0.
CCS 718. The recommendation is that the General Debtors Write-Off Report as at 30th of June 2025 be received. Someone to move that, please. Councillor Bijou, Deputy Mayor Terry, Councillor Bijou.
Thank you. Just they're relatively minor amounts. It's a fairly standard procedure, and even though it sounds like it's quite significant in the scheme of things, it's an important administrative process.
Deputy Mayor. Anyone speaking against? No? Put that to the vote. All those in favour?
Carried 9-0.
CCS 719 rate subsidies for sporting and community organisation recipient list for 2024-25. The recommendation is that the council receive the rating subsidy sporting and community organisations recipient list for 2024-25. Councillor Sutton, Councillor McKinley, Councillor Sutton.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, this will be quite brief. I did speak at the committee and probably spoken on this for the last 3 or 4 years, how it's important. There's just one little aspect that a lot of people wouldn't understand that this contributes to, and that goes back to the game that I may or may not have mentioned when North Albany beat Royals on the weekend. I did ask Councillor McKinley where his young fellas were. You liked that, didn't you? He said they're doing canteen duty. You know, we talk about Albany being a great community. These clubs is where the young are learning that. You know, these guys are there to play footy, but they're actually serving other members and guests in the canteen, and that's part of what they have to do to be a part of the club. So 180,000, I think, was about the net amount in the rate subsidy. Return on investment that would just about equal when we had the race wars, which was the biggest return on investment we've ever had. But all that going back into the community in the future, 180,000 is a pittance. We get great social interest on that. I'd urge all councillors to support it. Thank you.
Councillor McKinley. Anyone speaking against? If not, we'll put it to the vote. All those in favour?
Carried 9-0.
The CCS 720 new lease, Department of Fire and Emergency Services, portion of Reserve 1948. The recommendation is that the council approve the new lease over a portion of Crown Reserve 1948 drone to FES ministerial body, subject to terms and conditions outlined in section 12 of this report. Someone to move? Councillor Trail. Seconder, Councillor Grimmer, Councillor Trail.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just in brief, this is an administrative formality, but I guess it points to the fact that that fire is really an important part of our lives these days, getting more and more prevalent as fire season starting earlier and earlier. So from the point of view of having a lease area for a hut and an equipment store in a tiny little part of our community is pretty small in the overall scheme of things, but in the overall scheme of things also, it's really important. So I guess it just highlights the importance of DFES in our lives, in our community, and how we value and how we need their assistance. So from my point of view, it's a bit of a no-brainer, and I'll be supporting this. Thanks.
Councillor Grimmer.
Yes, very quickly, Mayor. I support what Councillor Trail said. I can remember witnessing some of the water bombers in action over the lowlands area it would be 3 or 4 years ago, and the work they do is absolutely so important. So I very much support the fact that we should be giving them a space to accommodate their planes and equipment. So very much support this item.
Anyone want to speak against? If not, put that to the vote. All those in favour?
Carried 9-0.
CCS 721 Communications and Engagement Strategy Progress Report. The recommendation is that the City of Albany Communications and Engagement Strategy Progress Report for Q1 of 2025 and its endorsement by Communications and Engagement Advisory Group be noted. Someone to move that? Councillor Grimmer. Seconder. Councillor Beaujeu, Councillor Grimmer.
Being a member of the advisory group, I think this group is doing some great work in ensuring that we get a community perspective of how engagement should take place for any of our major issues, and it's really good. The actions in it have all been endorsed, and that we're making really good progress against it. So I really would like to congratulate Tammy Flett and all of the community engagement team that have anything to do with this. I think our engagement practices are as good as any local government I've seen. So I really think that this advisory group is a great initiative and is working very well. Thank you.
Councillor Beaujeu. Anyone want to speak against? No? We'll put that to the vote. All those in favour?
Carried 9-0.
CCS 722 appoint the WAEC to conduct the ordinary and extraordinary elections. It's in two parts. The recommendation is that the council declare in accordance with section 4.204 of the Local Government Act 1995, the electoral commissioner to be responsible for the conduct of the 2025 ordinary election together with any other elections or polls which may be required, and decide in accordance with section 4612 of the Local Government Act 1995 that the method of conducting the election will be as a postal election. Someone to move. Deputy Mayor Terry, Councillor Child. Deputy Mayor Terry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As the report does mention, we don't really have a choice, unfortunately. We need to appoint the Electoral Commissioner, WAEC, as the body to conduct the election, and also that has to be we can decide not to do it as a postal, but we have to then do it all internally, resource that. It's just a minefield for us to be able to do that. So this is the next best option. Unfortunately, it is quite a costly option as well. If we have a look at the figure, I think 174,000. I just quickly looked at. I'm not sure what that compares to in the 2023 election, Mr. Gilfillan. I should have probably asked that question prior to, but it's a lot of money. Let's hope they do a better job than they did 2 years ago. Thank you.
Councillor Child.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Look, I endorse what Deputy Mayor Terry has said. I think it's called Hobson's choice, i.e. no choice, if they're the only ones who can actually conduct a postal election. Look, ideal business opportunity for someone to go in to do postal elections, I would have said, because it's an expensive option here. But we've got to do it. As a former employee, long past of the WA Electoral Commission, I'm pretty glad I don't work for them anymore, because it's as we've seen in the last few months, it's a fairly dysfunctional organisation. But let's hope that they do get their act together before October and run this election. I think they're on notice. I think a lot of people will be watching this election with a lot of interest, not just for the results, but also the way the election is conducted. So from that point of view, I will be supporting this recommendation, slightly reluctantly, because there isn't really any option. But from those points of view, I think we've got to go with it. Thanks, Mayor.
Speaker against? Councillor Beijing.
May not be so much a speak against. I guess it was more clarification. It isn't the only option. We don't need to accept postal. It has been the convention. My concern is, I was curious to know what proportion of local governments might still do in-person election, and are we actually convinced that we are getting value for money? We've heard that there was a lot of dissatisfaction at the state election and the federal election. There's not a lot of confidence that our voters have in the Electoral Commission at the moment. $170,000 is a lot of money to be spending. We need to be confident that we're getting reasonable value for money, and maybe we do have options besides just going with the norm. So I have some concerns about it, and I pick up on the reluctance of the mover and seconder of this motion.
Mr. CEO, do you want to respond to that?
So there is thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for the question, Councillor Beijing. There is a number of smaller local governments that are still holding their own in-person election. It has to be done on the day of election, and it has really the limitation that people must turn up and vote in person. The larger local governments have been encouraged to get higher voter turnout to offer postal elections, and I understand that the Minister for the larger local governments that want to make a request to hold an in-person election may be overridden by the Minister. So it really is even harder. I think for this situation, if the Council wanted to consider that, we might also be instructed that for Band 1 local government, it might not be something that the Minister for Local Government would support in terms of their voter turnout.
I think that probably clarifies your concern. Councillor Leonetti.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm with Councillor Bajou. What is would it be dearer to run in person or is it dearer to do postal? What is the cost equivalent?
Mr. Mayor, thank you for the question, Councillor Leonetti. I mean, the significant saving would be on the postal expense, and a large portion, I don't have the breakdown, but Ms. Williamson may be able to support my answer, but the majority of the cost relates to the postage of the ballot papers to the individual household. And I think, here we go, there's a breakdown of the cost here, hopefully, that will answer the question with a bit more detail.
Someone want to summarise that?
So, they don't give a breakdown, but I think we can potentially provide that information further if you want more understanding of the breakdown, but there's a significant amount of the cost that's passed on to the local government that relates to postage. If we were to run it in-house, we would need to potentially look at using our own staff, and then if it's on a Saturday, then our industrial agreement would have requirements about people working on a weekend and penalty rates, and then we'd need to logistically make sure that we could allow people across the district to have various voting polling places that they could turn up, similar to a state and federal election where you give people opportunity to be right across the district so they don't have to travel from out east or out west into the main city centre. So, and there's an advertising lead time. So we wouldn't be, I think logistically, we're not in a position that we could consider it for this election. If that's something that the council wants to explore further, I think we'd have to sort of talk to you about that in a bit more detail. But I mean, I take on board. There's been a fair bit of lobbying going on behalf of the sector from Welga to say, can there be other options around postal? Because at the moment, the real only monopoly sits with the WA Electoral Commission. And a lot of local governments are saying the same thing as what we're saying, is that we really want to make sure that we're getting maximum value, in summary, maximum value for our ratepayers, but also getting maximum voter attendance and participation. Yeah, thank you.
So I think it's important to note there's about 42% response in a mayoral election a year. So we're trying to get people to vote, as many people as we possibly can. Not doing postal might thwart that a bit, but up to you. Okay, anyone want to speak for or against? No? If not, I'll put that to the vote. Oh, write a reply.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just wanted to point out, that we haven't had an amendment put, so we do need to advise, as per paragraph 7 of the report, need to advise the Electoral Commission by the 30th of July of our decision to appoint the WAEC. So we could defer this till our July council meeting, because this is our June council meeting. However, I think I did pose this question probably 2 years ago, and there has been a bit of discussion. The cost and the resourcing, especially we're only 4 months out from the election, to pivot and to hold that as an in-person election, I think is going to be fraught with danger. And without tasking staff with doing a business case, and how much is that going to cost for us to do it, and how are we going to do it? The CEO talked about many booths around the area to make it accessible, to make sure we get at least 30% turnout rate. If we want to consider doing it as an in-person vote, let's not consider that for this election, but maybe for the 27 election, and we can task staff to maybe do some work on it. I think they might be a bit reluctant to do that work on it because it will be a mountain of work. We'd need to bring in I think we'd have to bring in more people and like casuals to do it. So whilst it is a significant cost, I think it would actually cost more to do it as an in-person, and we might not get as good a result. So I urge to reluctantly support this motion as it exists, rather than it's too late to defer it. Well, no, I can't, because I'm doing in reply speech response. So, yeah, vote for it or not, it needs to go through. Thank you.
That closes debate. All those in favour? Against?
Carried 8-1 against councillor Beju.
Appointment of committee chairs. Now you'll have ballot papers in your drawer. This is a requirement, quite ludicrous to be honest. You know that we're 3 months from now we're going to do it again. But to get Okay, before we go to the recommendation, I'm going to call for nominations for the chair of Community and Corporate Services Committee. Is anyone want to put their hand up? All right, Councillor Grimmer, anyone else want to put their hand up for the chair? No? Someone want to put their hand up for deputy chair? Councillor Trail. Do we have a nomination for Development and Infrastructure Services Committee Chair? Councillor Trail. The Deputy Chair, Councillor Sutton. The Chief Executive Performance Review Committee for Chair, I'll nominate myself. Does anyone else want to nominate? A Deputy Chair? Deputy Mayor Terry. Okay, so we don't have to have an election. So can we fill those in? So you can put your ballot papers away. We'll be doing it again in 3 months' time. Okay, so the recommendation is that the nominations for Chair and Deputy Chair be invited for the following committees: Community and Corporate Services Committee, Development and Infrastructure Service Committee, and Chief Executive Officer Performance Review Committee, and that the following nominees be appointed as the Chair and Deputy Chair. No, it's only for the chairs. So for Corporate and Community Services, the chair is nomination is Councillor Grimmer. The Deputy Chair nomination is Councillor Trail. Development and Infrastructure Services Committee, the nomination for the chair is Councillor Trail, and the Deputy Chair is Councillor Sutton. And for the Chief Executive Officer Performance Review Committee, the chair is myself, Mayor Stocks, and Deputy Chair is Deputy Mayor Terry. Someone to move that, please. Councillor Sutton, Councillor Beju, Councillor Sutton. Councillor Beju. Does anyone want to speak against? If not, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour?
Carried 9-0.
Thank you. All right, we have a confidential report attached to the next proposed partnership agreement. Does anyone want to refer to anything in the confidential item that would require us to go behind closed doors? No discussion? Don't want to discuss it? No? All right, we'll proceed ahead. Yes, sorry, Councillor Beju.
Thank you. It was just a point of clarification on paragraph 10, but I don't believe it requires confidential discussion. It was just around clarification in item 10 of the report. Sorry, the supporting report. No, it is paragraph 10. And it's back to do with the history and the context of it. Just clarification, the way it's worded, it implies that the removal of the screening correlated with the new fee structure, and I just wanted to clarify whether they were in fact quite independent events that just happened to coincide, or one actually led to the other.
We'll refer to the Executive Director, Mr. Gilfell.
Thank you, and through the chair. So I wasn't here at the time, but with Rex flying smaller planes, they don't require security, and inbuilt in the pricing was a nominal amount for security. So it would have been that they're somewhat independent in that the security was removed because the planes are smaller, but then the fee was probably less because there was no need to provide security for the planes at the same time. So they're independent, but at the same time a little bit related.
Do you need to go behind closed doors, or are you happy to carry on? Okay. No one else wants to go behind closed doors. The recommendation is that the council delegate authority to the CEO to negotiate this agreement with Rex in accordance with conditions detailed in this report. A mover, please. Councillor Sutton, Deputy Mayor Terry, Councillor Sutton.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, just briefly, I think the saving grace of this agreement, it's only a short period to the receivers hand it back, so our agreement ceases because we all understand how we've been let down twice by airlines. So I think, as I say, the saving grace is it's a very, very limited agreement. Hopefully, it doesn't drag on for too long and we can renegotiate. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Terry.
Thank you, Mayor. Having been Rex recently, whatever the CEO can do to try and encourage them to improve their service and all that, because it has been troubling. It's not just here in WA; it's around the country. We all know the reasons why. The sooner that the administrators can move on the airline for a purchase, and we have a different operator with more modern planes, I think the better off we will all be. And I look forward to the day when that happens. Thank you.
Speaker against. Councillor Leonetti.
This ain't really against. I think putting Paul Andrew up there by himself is a bit of a hard ball. I think we should send a couple with him, send someone else with him and help put a harder stance on him and help him out, pushing it through, I reckon, so they actually come to the party a bit more.
Anyone else want to speak for or against? No? Okay, well, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? Against?
Carried 8-1 against Councillor Leonetti.
DIS 443, Planning and Building Reports, May 2025. The recommendation is that the Planning and Building Reports for May 2025 be received. Someone to move. Councillor Baiju, Councillor Trail, Councillor Baiju.
Just to acknowledge that it's great to see a number of single and group dwellings, a lot of additions in both the planning and building approvals. So, great that Albany is still contributing to resolving that housing crisis, and I'm sure our staff are working very, very hard.
Councillor Trail. Anyone want to speak against? No? I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour?
Carried 9-0.
DIS 444 rather, Ellen Cove Swimming Enclosure Store Damage Repairs. Now, this has come to council and hasn't been in committee, so I think what we'll ask the office to do is to give us a bit of background before we go into debate. Are you okay with that? Righto. Someone to give us some background, Mr. CEO?
So after this significant event that you're all aware of, we had a reasonable amount of damage that they identified when they did their regular maintenance inspection. The cost of it requires an increase of the budget of about $100,000. We do have some money, a fair amount of money, in fact, budgeted for next year, but obviously to start it for this year, we need the budget review to do it. But we'd probably just about be right, wouldn't we, Matt? In terms of, yeah. But yes, so what we would like is we'd like to increase the budget to allow for to make these repairs, and then after that we will undertake some community engagement to try and understand how much the community really loves this swimming enclosure.
Mr. CEO?
Mr. Mayor, further to that, I think we sort of brought this to your attention, and the preferred position was to bring this report to you and recommend that we include that amount to allow this work to happen and put that in the budget for 25-26. But I think you also asked that part 2 be included in the report that would allow you to get some further engagement happening with the community that would then be the subject of a further report back to the council once that information was available, and that would happen by December of 2025. So I think when we had the conversation with the council, that was your preferred position to take. So I think Mr. Mayor, we're in your hands now in terms of the officer recommendation.
Okay. Is there any point of clarification you want to ask the officers before we go into debate? No? Righto. The recommendation is that council will approve an increase to the 2025-26 capital works budget by $100,000 to enable the repair of Middleton Beach swimming enclosure with proposed funding from the Parking, Bridges and Marine Infrastructure Reserve, and to instruct the CEO to undertake stakeholder and community engagement to explore future options for the long-term viability of the Ellen Cove swimming enclosure, with a further report to be presented to council following the completion of the engagement process by the end of December 2025. Someone to move that, please. Councillor Trail, Councillor Leonetti, Councillor Trail.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I haven't been part of much of these discussions, but this item coming to us here did raise a few questions in my mind, and it's quite a significant amount of money. But again, it's a little bit like the DFS hut and the postal elections. It's one of those things I think we've got to bite the bullet and actually go with for a number of reasons. But I do like part 2 of the recommendation to actually instruct the CEO to undertake a bit of research to see, as Mr. Cannon said, how much the community love this enclosure and the opportunity to swim there. It crossed my mind as to, well, do we actually need an enclosure there? And then I thought, gee, what would happen if a shark came in and we'd be on the front page of every paper, having turned something like this down. So from that point of view, I don't want to be part of a council that's going to knock this down and have a shark victim hitting the headlines. So and the other important thing, I think, having spoken to a couple of councillors in recent times, is that the state government have actually put in, I think, 400,000 towards this. So we haven't put all this money in ourselves. It's not a total burden on our ratepayers. Sure, not everybody uses the swimming enclosure, but it's there, and it's a safety issue. And it's there for visitors and for residents alike. And the state government, through all of our state taxes here in Albany, further afield, have contributed a fair bit of money. So from that point of view, it's really a hard one to knock back. But let's see what the CEO comes up with by the end of the year in terms of some investigation, because I think we owe it to our ratepayers to actually do that investigation. Up the beach from here, we've got a fabulous new surf reef. That's taken a long, long time to get going. It would be a shame, I think, if we just knocked this on the head and said, oh, it's free for all at Ellen Cove. We don't need a swimming enclosure. I think we do. I think we need to fix it, but I think we also need to look at alternates down the track, just to see what else is available. There there are bound to be alternative solutions around. So I'll look forward to that. But in the meantime, let's push this through. Thanks, Mayor.
Councillor Leonetti.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Malcolm. That was well put. Yeah, I'm with Malcolm. I think we need it. I mean, at the end of the day, there's probably more people that swim than play golf or even surf. And most of our people in Albany are old. So most of them actually swim as you get older. But I think we need to look at getting a more permanent enclosed, like an ocean pool, whether, like we were saying before, whether it's concrete or rocks or whatever. But we may have to look at something where we're not actually having to fix it every second day. So we could put that forward and see what the costs are, and I think the people would go for it. And I think we really need a swimming enclosure down here. Now with the reef, once that reef gets a bit of marine around it and start the fish start coming, well, when the fish start coming, I'm sad to say sharks come with them. And I don't think people can swim as fast as a fish, so we'll be the bait, not the fish. Thank you.
Well, I fit most of those categories. I'm old, I play golf, and I swim. I don't like sharks much. Anyone want to speak against Councillor Sutton?
Look, thank you. Now, look, I may or may not vote for this. Listen to the argument. The state government has given us around about 400,000 over the journey, and I think we've probably spent that and more on maintenance. Only, was it last year, where we hit for a huge bill that went over 100,000 over what we were going to spend, and now we're up for another 100, if it is 100. And point of clarification there would be, will it exceed 100? Because it, when they dig it out and pull it out, what they find will determine what the cost of it is. I think number 2.2 is crucial. If we can't get a robust net that's going to survive these once in 20 that we get every couple of months, then we can't continue. We can't expect the ratepayers to continue forking money out hand over fist. So that's crucial, and we've got to get state and or federal government to contribute massively if we're going to hold the can on the maintenance. And I think Mario's incorrect. You don't have to swim faster than the fish. You have to swim with a partner and be quicker than him. Thank you.
Let's make sure we're using the councillor's title. Anyone speaking for or against? Right of reply, Councillor Trail.
I think the debate has been wrapped up pretty well, Mr. Mayor. In terms of the fact that I think the ratepayers would expect us to actually fix this up. We're going to get more of these events. Sad statement, but probably true. But I think we'll look forward to the end of the year when we come back with a report on the options, basically, because as Councillor Sutton has said, I think we've certainly we've been not taken for a ride, but I think we've certainly been held over a bit of a barrel with this enclosure, and we were not very happy about the way that the previous repairs were handled. I think we made that clear at the time, and here's just another example. Let's go for it one more time, but let's look at the alternatives and see what we come up with at the end of the year and debate it again then. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. That closes debate. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour?
Carried 9-0.
So we'll move on to audit and risk. AR 168 policy 1.72 management of complaints of alleged breaches of behaviour policy. Do you want to make a comment?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to seek some clarification from the council because in relation to the behavioural breaches, we have an attachment that will guide the process in relation to a new policy that is being considered. And when we have brought this back through audit and risk, what it was requested and the information has now been included in the policy is that if I refer you to the screen, that was the request to include following the council determination, a copy of the complaint and finding will be published on the city's website. I'm just seeking a bit more clarification, and perhaps if we could request that the wording be amended to read as follows. So, following the council determination, a summary, open bracket, only if a breach occurred, close bracket, and then continue. Oh, sorry, Jen, I thought we were in the policy. If we could go, yeah. So on that, in the policy, if we were able to, so perhaps a bit of clarification first. So as that stands at the moment, if there was a determination or not a determination, it could be interpreted that it must be published on the website. I think what we would do is follow a similar process to the standards panel, where you don't publish the full complaint. You would only publish the findings. So, and if there is an actual breach that occurred, so if the council found that there was no breach, you wouldn't be expecting to publish that on the website. So, just seeking a bit of guidance. If the intent is to just provide a summary of the complaint and the finding, then I would suggest that we make that clear in the policy for clarity, because otherwise people might be expecting that we're doing something else in relation to how we're handling those complaints. So if that was the intent, Mr. Mayor, we'd read.
Okay, so it's only part of the policy, not the actual recommendation. Yes. It sounds fair to me. Is there anyone that objects to that? No, adjust the policy, consider it adjusted. Can we move on to the recommendation?
Yes, so if you're happy, then that will be picked up as part of the recommendation.
So no objection? No. Thank you. The policy 172, management of complaints of all alleged breaches of behaviour policy, is detailed in the attachment to this report.
Just a point of order, sorry. Mr. Mayor, just that amendment, how it's written, still doesn't say only if there's a finding against.
We'll adjust that in the policy. Do it now? Righto.
Yeah.
Council happy with that? Righto. Have another crack. The responsible officer recommendation is that policy 172, management of complaints of alleged breaches of behaviour policy, as detailed in the attachment to this report, be adopted, noting the changes requested from the Audit and Risk Committee held in May 2025. Someone to move. Deputy Mayor Terry, Councillor Trail. Deputy Mayor Terry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, it's good to get some clarification or further clarification as to how we will deal with complaints that come to us. In my 10 years on council, up until 18 months ago, there weren't many. So we haven't really had to think about this very much. But things have changed over the last 18 months or so. And we do need, it's my recollection of the report, it's a requirement of the Act anyway, to have this policy there. So it was discussed quite openly during the audit meeting, and was referred back for a couple of iterations and changes with feedback from the committee. So I'd like to thank Stuart Jamieson and Jen Williamson on the work, and of course the CEO on the work in putting this policy together and taking on board the feedback that the Audit and Risk Committee have provided over the last few months, and hope that you all support this as with the amendment that's there as well to the policy. So urge you all to support. Thank you.
Councillor Trail.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just to reiterate, Deputy Mayor has said we did discuss this at some length at Audit and Risk for those councillors who weren't on that committee or part of that discussion. So from that point of view, we did go through it pretty much with a fine-tooth comb. I think it's probably fair to say that the previous policy or the previous way we were dealing with behavioural complaints was not satisfactory. We recognise that. We went through quite a lot of angst with the complaints that we've had. So this really tightens those up. We're following best practice. We're going by the regulations. So from that point of view, I think we've done as well as we can at this point with those amendments. And again, thank you to Stuart Jamieson in his absence and Jen for doing that work. It's nothing's perfect, and there's bound to be situations, I think, down the track where there will be there'll be problems. But this is a good policy to actually have, and at least there's something in place now. So let's hope that we can run with this and approve it now. Thank you.
Speaker against? Councillor Leonetti.
You knew this was coming. Yeah, thanks. But I'm not against it, but what I'd like to do is have it postponed or revisited and wait till after the results from the latest apparent breaches that have happened and find out exactly what are breaches and what aren't. Because the way I feel, all right, I'm not PI. I don't talk like everybody else. I'm just a bum, but I don't care. But what it is my breaches, a lot of them are through the way it's worded. Right? People take it as offensive. So I want to revisit it.
Confidentiality.
Yeah. Unfortunately, like the process is that if someone's made a complaint, that then triggers confidentiality, which is so we can't discuss that. And and understand your frustration, but they're the rules. Perhaps post. You can have another look at it. You can always revisit it. Policy can be amended. Anyone else want to speak for or against? No? Okay. Right of reply, Councillor Terry, Deputy Mayor Terry? No? We'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? Against?
Carried 7-2. Against Councillor Leonetti and Councillor McKinley.
AR 173, Internal Audit Report, Regulation 17 Review. The committee recommendation is that the Regulation 17 Review report prepared by AMD be received. Someone to move that, please. Councillor Sutton, Councillor Trail, Councillor Sutton, Councillor Trail. Anyone wish to speak against? No? We'll put that to the vote. All those in favour?
Carried 9-0.
AR 174. The recommendation is that the fees, charges and revenue management review report prepared by AMD be received. Someone to move that, please. Councillor Sutton, Councillor Trail, Councillor Sutton, Councillor Trail. Anyone to speak against? No? We'll put that to the vote. All those in favour?
Carried 9-0.
How do we... Okay, AR 178, review of delegations and council policy registers. The recommendation from the committee is that the reviewed and amended register of delegations and authorisations be adopted, and that the list of council policies as per the council position register be adopted. Someone to move? Councillor McKinley, Councillor Trail. Councillor McKinley.
No, thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Trail.
Yeah, just in brief, thank you, Mayor. I challenge anyone to have read this whole document. It's huge, and I can't say I've read the whole thing myself and cannot recite it word for word, but there's a massive amount of work. And Thanks and kudos to Stuart Jamieson once again for doing this. His brain amazes me at times, and his ability to actually get to the nitty gritty is an absolute gem in this area. So from that point of view, we're very lucky to have him do this job. And the Register of Delegations and Authorisations and the Council Policies documents are top class, top gold standard. So let's adopt these and be very grateful we've got Stuart. Thank you.
Anyone want to speak against? Councillor Bajou?
Again, it's perhaps a matter of clarification, and yeah, full kudos to the effort that's gone into that, and my apologies for not attending the Audit and Risk Committee. It is extensive, and I don't have an issue, but my question relates to LG 4.02, which relates to regional price preference, and it's really just given that that is one of the most closely scrutinised policies, just for me to understand the implication of changing the threshold from 30,000 to 50,000 for the regional pricing preference. It would perhaps just assess just the implications of that change of threshold from 30 to 40.
So you want to have a crack at that? Go to Mr. Gilfillan, Executive Director.
Thanks through the chair.